will start with municipal captioning.
I'll start by talking about municipal captioning a little tiny bit, but the main thing I want to focus on is some ideas that John had that we're moving ahead on trying to implement, and that might be applicable for other stations, which is being able to access funds to reimburse the city or county from the CARES Act. So I'm going to speak a little bit, but I would love to have John be able. So he'll see if he can maybe call in from a different phone or find a way to get so we can better hear him. And I'll start. So hey everybody, my name is Daniel Krozik. I think I know everybody on the call, though I didn't look through the list. I feel like I've met everybody over the years at these conferences, so I don't need to go much on my bio or what I'm doing, except to say that I got a great chance to work with a lot of the stations, working at different companies, doing playback systems or even with the distribution systems. And for the last 3 years, I've been doing the closed captioning. And the thing that I guess I'd say make municipal captioning different is there's a couple things. One is that we work with all the different products, and I'm happy to walk you through and show you all of the options for the 3 leading AI captioning systems. So EEG, Link, and Enco, all 3 of those I have customers using. We're actually going to do a presentation for the ACM where we have a chat with customers of all the different products that I've sold to kind of talk about what they're doing and how it's worked for them and what the community response has been. So if you want to think of me maybe as like a car lot where you could buy a Honda or a Ford or a Chevrolet, you know, as opposed to a dealership that just sells one particular solution. The other thing is I always give discounts, municipal discounts. Everything is got free shipping for the government. And I also always give a 5% discount off of list price as a starting spot for everything. Some things I get a even larger discount on from the manufacturer, and then I can add additional discount on top of that. So I try to always be the cheapest place to buy. And then also I'm specialized in that. I only do a few things, you know, this, and then sometimes I'll talk to people about their playback or other things I have past experience on, like distribution from the field back to the station. But really just the things that I've done in past jobs, and then this is 90% of my focus. So you know, as a niche, I know how to help implement this. I know how to troubleshoot. I know how to get support expedited from the companies. I try to make it a faster process for getting it implemented, and also a better process once it's implemented to make sure things keep working. So that's who I am. That's what I do. About 24 cities and counties now, and starting to work with places in Wisconsin that we might be implementing before the end of the year if all goes well. So that's all I need to say about myself here. If you have any questions on captioning, or you're looking to purchase something, you need quotes, you need installation, whatever you need. If you want to put in yourself, that's fine. I can get virtual engineering assistance over Zoom. 2 engineers that have paid before to help folks over Zoom, and they're self-installing. So moving on, the big thing for folks has not been whether they want to do captioning or whether they know that they kind of need to do captioning, because the ADA does require all the local government entities to do this for all of that civic content. It's just been how to pay for it. Very few places have had it budgeted. Maybe you're one that has it budgeted, but you haven't implemented it. If so, you're in the minority. Most do not have it budgeted. And this is a story of how that might work in your advantage if you were implementing it at this time. And is it John calling in again? John?
Yeah, I'm here. Can people hear me better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Much better, John.
I'm using the microphone on the camera, so glad you guys can hear me and I don't need to shout. And you really hit it right on the head at the end of that, Daniel, when you said did not budget, because that actually was key for us, that we did not budget for it. It's something that my committee and the board itself was familiar with, because as we went through the process with the Bradley group and some other things, trying to be in compliance with what the ADA wanted, you know, the idea of having a plan at least made you in compliance for how you were going to offer closed captioning to your viewers. And with the pandemic happening and really changing everybody's day-to-day life in March and April and beyond, talk of funds for reimbursement and stuff started floating around, and I kind of got to thinking about captioning, and if there was a possibility that maybe we could use some of those funds to pay for the captioning, because we kind of had to switch our game plan at the station as well. We went from covering maybe 1 to 2 live meetings a month to having to cover every committee meeting for the county. And some of you channels that already do cover all those meetings already doing this, but for us, it changed the amount of live broadcasting we did from a few hours each month to, several hours a week to a few hours every day. So I contacted Daniel at Municipal Captioning and had him put together a couple of different solutions. And as he said, you can, Fords, Chevys, whatever. He gave me a list of some of the different products that he has availability to get for us, and kind of their highlights, like where are they budget friendly, are they user friendly, what type of, just like with your cell phone, are they unlimited, or do you have to pay by the hour essentially for how your captioning comes in? So he gave me a list of basically 3 different solutions. We narrowed it down to, and I took that list to my committee, and now we're getting into I don't remember if it was June or July. Now we're getting into the mid to later summer months, and I went over this list with my committee, and I said, these are some options that we have for captioning. This is something you guys are aware that we need to do, and here might be a chance for us to pay for this with using some of these funds that may become available. It's not, it's the kicker, may become available, right? So then I presented to the committee, and lo and behold, they said, you know what, if we're going to do something, if we're going to caption this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to buy the server outright. We're going to buy unlimited usage. We're going to make sure our folks at home can view, I guess, along with hearing, or if they have hearing impairment, see what's happening in the meetings, so they can follow along a little bit better, because that's one of the complaints that as a station we received and we're somewhat familiar with, was some of the problems with folks at home being able to hear what's going on with the meetings. But with the meetings being a couple a day, the committee members started to also get contacted from the public saying, I really enjoyed what you guys were talking about, but there was a few things we missed, so also they're getting familiar with the problem of being able to hear and see what's going on in the meetings. So that's probably what kind of helped push, also the fact that we have a really bad mic system right now, push the fact that they said, go ahead, get the best bang for your buck here, and move it forward. So then now we're looking at, I think it was sometime in late August, early September, and the county had already talked to a couple different organizations that were in charge to help spend, I guess, or vet, if you will, some of the programs that the different departments within the county who had incurred expenses essentially due to the pandemic. And now back to the did not budget part of it. That's so one of the requirements was this has to be an expense that was that came about basically due to the pandemic that wasn't already budgeted for. And I thought, closed captioning falls right into this. Here we are now covering all the committee meetings. So we have to make sure people at home, people in all these meetings know what's being said and what's being discussed, and it wasn't budgeted for. And I think there might have been an ad hoc committee put together, and then there was an exec finance committee went through, and all the departments submitted some of the expenses they had, and kind of last minute there, I submitted ours for closed captioning, and it passed, and it went through. So now I'm on the other end of it, where I need to contact Danielle again. We've been going Daniel again about purchase order and going back and forth and actually moving forward with it. And it feels pretty good to know that now that we're going to have captioning for all of our programming that's going to be coming out. And it's one of those things that got me thinking about other things besides just a pandemic, because hopefully we don't have another COVID-19. Hopefully COVID-20 isn't, coming or something like that. So that where could you use something like this that's not directly related to, the pandemic? And perhaps if you, have to cover an event like Sun Prairie had to do, and you can say, well, this is something we weren't prepared to do, and we had to buy, you know, an extra 500 gigs of bandwidth to stream live from location. You might be able to go ahead and look into some of these emergency funds that are available statewide and nationwide to cover expenses for communicating to the public. So that's kind of how I got brought onto this panel here today. So, and I guess that's my story.
Yeah, and really this is all because of John, because I had not really directly thought about how those kind of funds were applicable until, you know, John reached out about it, and it really is very applicable. I have right now up, I think everyone can see the URL to look at the specific terms around the CARES money. And as again, I had on the previous meeting, I can go back to, it really breaks down to being money that was not budgeted and that gets spent with respect to, you know, it being a public health emergency. So, you know, I also think what's really important here is John says it's not just something about captioning. Captioning is just one of those things that you could justify. New microphones is another one of those things. I was trying to get another city on, but they were busy. But they're looking at being able to upgrade a lot of their equipment, specifically captioning and playback, if they're able to get the funds out of the city or county. And it wasn't because of the CARES money, but just because the pandemic and the emergency response has made the city more willing to spend because people are paying more attention to the meetings. And I think, you know, I think we all know this now, that we're getting more eyes on us, people paying attention to what we're doing, how we're doing it, but also more of just people watching the meetings. Because if there's questions about how the school is going to reopen, those school board meetings are getting way more attention than before. So, you know, even if you're not able to access those funds, certain folks might be more willing to pay to upgrade your tools. And again, I think captioning is a really good thing to deal with in this time frame, but it's not the only thing you might be able to get funds for. You might be able to get funds, like John said, for stuff you've already done, bandwidth you've had to pay for, or services you had to pay for. So also they do say on this site here, I'm going to go back again, there are details there about how the money is going to be broken up based on the census and number of people living in the local places. So there's no guarantees about how much you can get. It's really just a open, you know, application for you to ask for the money back if it meets certain terms, and then you may or may not get reimbursed it. But I think the chances are good compared to any other previous time that we've been able to try to get funds for anything other than our cable subscribers. So
if I was following some of our meetings correctly about it, I believe municipalities also receive their own amount of funds that they're eligible for. So like I know the county received like up to $480,000 to be used total. And then I think each municipality inside our county also received funds too. So if you haven't talked to, I don't know, it'd be your clerk or treasurer, whoever at your municipality, they might know kind of what that number is. And you could maybe talk to them about some of the things that you guys had to do to cover this for some of that reimbursement.
yeah, so I know it's kind of a short time frame because it looks like from the numbers, like the info I copied from that website, they're saying the period has to be the end of this year. But if anybody wants to try to put together numbers, even just to try to budget it, I'm happy to help folks look at the amount of time they're doing in meetings, look at both a buyout solution and a pay for it annually for a certain amount of time solution, give you contacts using the different systems. I try to be very transparent about all the steps of the process, and sometimes we can go through it pretty quickly if you know have hour or so for somebody on your side to sit with you and go through the info. But that's it. I'm done pitching. John, anything left to say before we pass it along?
No, not really. Just like I said, this is another little bit of a silver lining of this whole pandemic. Not only the opportunity maybe to supply some of these better services, if you will. And as you said, Daniel, we really got the more eyes on us in the last few months, having to cover so many more things. And I know people saw what we were able to do for the communities more. You know, those that were using the station all the time knew what we were capable of. Those who may not have been as familiar with what the station did really saw why community television was so important at these times, because we were there able to cover all these meetings and keep people informed on a day-to-day, if not hour-to-hour basis.
Thanks, John. So open for any questions. Is there a way we can take any questions if there are any? If not, I'll go ahead, please. I see Mary waving her hand.
I just want to make sure. So the deadline to apply for this is the end of the year, and is that right? Or is it earlier and the money has to be spent before the end of the year?
Yeah, the money has to be spent before the end of the year. It looked like when I looked at it on that website I linked to, and the next one, it said something about April 15 or April 29. Since it was an April date, I assume they meant 2021. Like you're asking for money in the spring for money that was spent this year, but it didn't say April 2021. It just said April 15. And obviously we're well past that, so that doesn't make much sense for it to have already been passed. But I think the idea, I understand, is money has to be spent before the end of 2020, but you would be able to submit the funds in the beginning of next year. Submit the requests, you know, the paperwork.
And different states might have different requirements.
Oh, good point, John.
I'd check into that because I know the integrity group, they're the ones that is kind of helping our county. They did mention that other states have different timelines. And actually, I want to say for us, we need to, for at least this first phase, if you will, because that I'm learning about it too as we go here. I need to have my purchase orders in by November 1st. So really short window here.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I don't have that website actually open, but I think you'll be able to better read it if you open it on your own end. And if you just search CARES local government, you should probably also find that as the first link. And that's really everything I know I've learned from that website and from John. John's got more firsthand experience because he's got a company, Integrity Group, I think it's called, working with them, and they do this. They apply for reimbursements via grants and things like this. So last thing, I guess, since I have a couple minutes, is the coloring contest is on. Please invite any ringers. You got kids, you got a spouse, you got a coworker, you got a board chair who sits around and would love to do this. Anybody that is connected to the organization or you by one person, you're welcome to enter into the coloring contest. And you can enter them, you can send them to me over email, or you can put them in chat. I don't know what the best way to do, probably. If you upload the chat, we all get to see it in real time. But if you email to me, I'll upload them into chat if that's easier. So. I think,
hey, John, before you guys wrap up, I just have one question. Is the plan you're talking about, are you, and I'm sorry if you answered this already, but are you guys live captioning your government meetings, or is this all on-demand captioning that you're talking about with your plan?
This would be live captioning, I believe, correct, Daniel?
Yeah, we're talking about doing it for live. You can always add offline and do it where it's content that's not real time. You know, you got stuff come in from other producers or old content you want to drop into a folder. But the main thing we've been focusing on is being able to do it to any live meeting or any piece of content on its first playback.
John, I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you a question that you may or may not have the answer to. But if you had to ballpark it, how many hours of government meetings do you cover a year?
A year?
Yeah.
All right.
If you just had to throw a number out there.
You know what? So I can do that because I'm going to say we do on average 3 hours a day. I'll just say 2 hours a day. Well, because we're covering, there's at least a meeting a day. So I'll just say 10 hours, 40 hours a month. So 40 times 12 is what?
400.
Yeah, so you're doing more than we are. Yeah.
Approximately 500 or so if you had any overage from extra events or something.
And so when we were first putting our plan together, I was looking at, it was like 30 hours a month is what we were going to do. So buying an hourly package looked really good. Looking at what we're doing now, and after we started doing every committee meeting, we found out that people want us to continue doing every committee meeting, even after things might be a little more conducive for the public to start coming back in the building. People like this. They want it to continue. So we decided the best bet was just to go with unlimited package. So then all of our programming essentially that goes through our system will be captioned.
Yeah. Just to go on what John's saying, those are really the two ways you could kind of look at this. Is it's almost analogous to the old cell phone plans, but you could say we want 30 hours a month or 45 hours a month or 60 hours a month. And then if we need to go over that, okay, there'll be an overage based on, on the number of hours over. Or you can say, let's just buy this unlimited as a capital item, capitalize it up front. You can pay for multiple years of service up front, or you can just pay for the first year of support and then second year of support as you use them. You know what I mean? You could, you basically treat it the way you treat electronics or a Telview or a Tightrope or a Comrex or some other piece of equipment that you want to that you want to implement and support and kind of base your organization around. They're not inexpensive, but they're automated in a way where you don't have to put a lot of staff time in after you start using them. And then that goes for all of them. All three of the major AI systems are solidly built and automated so that you don't have to make it as much time as it would even be booking human captioners. And I think human captioners are superior in a lot of ways, but they take time to organize and then they're expensive hourly. So.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for everybody, Daniel, but I know our challenge in Oshkosh is with stuff like this, and it always is, we can usually come up with the capital funds to make an initial purchase of hardware or something up front, but it's the subscription. Our budgets are, I should say my budget, not our. My budget is very lean. Adding $8,000 to $10,000 a year or X amount of $1,000 a year is a struggle. And it's the ongoing subscription fees that usually are difficult to get into a budget as compared to an upfront capital cost.
Right, but don't totally agree. The thing here is when you do buy it as capital, they have optional ongoing support plans, upgrades and support. So it's kind of like I want to say like Telview Care or Tightrope Care or whatever, where if you didn't buy it in a certain year, you could buy it the following year if you wanted to get the upgrades in 2022 instead of 2021, or back when you beg for Final Cut each implement, you might skip one or the other. So if you buy it as capital, there is still an ongoing cost. That's usually around $5,000-$6,000, $7,000 for some if you're doing offline and online together. But that could be skipped and left out of your budget if you don't want to get the upgrades that year and get the 24/7 or business hour support depending on the system. So it is a lot easier to deal with it as capital, whether or not you even want to pay for support in the ongoing. You just don't have to build it into your ongoing budget if you do capital. Sorry, I went down a rabbit hole there. It is also easy to get in at a low price if you're doing an operating budget and you're only going to do a small amount of hours. So if you are looking at this and you're like, oh gosh, we have to pay $40,000-$50,000 to buy it via capital, we can't afford to do that. There are ways to do this that are under $10,000 a year if you're only doing certain hours. So it's better, I think, to go capital route, but please don't let the capital route be the only reason not to do it if you have no capital funds, no capital funds to spend. Anyway,
another idea I thought of, kind of, Jake, while you were talking about the ongoing cost, and it could be the possibility of an underwriter specifically for the captioning, closed captioning brought to you by, and if you have a place at university hospitals, things like that, they might be a good organization to reach out to for that underwriter support for the captioning.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, John. I mean, you see that on broadcast channels and everywhere else all the time, support for X or YZ or closed captioning provided by. Yep, really good idea.
Yeah, and the nice thing is this also now passes captioning. If your stream provider is captioning compatible with their player and with their encoders and stuff, which a lot of them are, then you can pass your captioning not just to the TV channel, but to the live stream, so that if you do have sponsors and they might not have cable at their desk, they can on their phone see the captioning, little credit messages.
And one last thought I would offer on that, Daniel, because I know we've got a wrap here, is if when you are purchasing encoders for your live streams, make sure that you do the research and ensure that those encoders can pass captioning through them to your live stream and to your stream sources, because most do, but depending on the data that's being attached and where you're sending it and how it's going out, some of those encoders may not do what you want to do. So we have these little Teradek units in Oshkosh, that's what we use, and we made sure in case when we need to add captioning down the road, they are capable of doing that. But the first round of encoders that we had when we did our install, we were informed that they would not pass captioning. So we had to switch up our specs on our project when we did that.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on this, but that Teradek encoder I've been told is compatible with both YouTube and Facebook live streaming, which is the big thing people will look for making sure the captions pass through. If they have an encoder specific to their, their Casta stream or their Tightrope stream or their Telview stream, then that's a separate thing. But the one that people also get besides the Teradek, and I know they're back ordered according to people, but the AJA Hilo, I think it's pronounced. Maybe it's pronounced hello, but I think it's Hilo, Helo. It's not a cheap live stream encoder, but I've heard from a lot of folks, and we've actually used it to live stream to Facebook and YouTube for some commencements. It's solid. I think the Teradek's cheaper, but that AJA Hilo, if you can get it, is a good higher end encoder. So.
Hey, Daniel,
Okay.
one
Go ahead,
quick
please.
tech question. Oh,
No, go ahead.
What about multiple language?
It's there. It's just new.
Okay.
So there are solutions where you can have English and Spanish on their own separate channels in the encoder. That's something EEG does with their high-end encoder. They can use the iCloud and then combine it into a single data stream. There's also solutions where you have a human caption, or not even human caption, but AI captioning that gets routed out to Google Translate. I'm pretty sure, and I think there's another presentation coming up where Link is going to be presenting, I think with Alpha, and they're going to have Trish, who's really, really good at going through product and demonstrating. She's really the best at demonstrating the product. She'll probably be able to talk about it. I think they have Google Translate implemented for that. Enco also has a product called N-Translate that you could feed it one language and get up. And then there's third-party stuff. I've got one company I've been working with. They say they get the translation for Bloomberg Latin America. They get the English and then all the captions in Latin America that are in Spanish went over the cable or over the live stream. So it's just a bit more implemented to translate and have it on a second channel. Sometimes you actually need two caption encoders, one for channel CC1 and CC3.
All righty. Daniel, I think that's all the time we got for you this morning, man. But as always, thank you so very much. And obviously, your contact info is available to everything was sent out to everybody in an email, contact info for all the exhibitors.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here.
Love you guys.
And Daniel will be presenting again at 2:40 after our first workshop as well. So, and if you have any questions, you guys, you can use the chat room to talk to him as well too. Okay.